Hello and welcome to the Galactic Family Podcast. Today, we open a rare portal, traveler between worlds, Jerry Wills, renowned healer, fearless explorer, and dedicated seeker of ancient wisdom. Jerry has traversed the globe guided by intuition to uncover the hidden truths of lost civilizations and the subtle energies that weave through the universe. His journey is illuminated by miraculous healings and profound encounters with intelligences beyond our ordinary perception. He has unveiled mysteries most only glimpse in their dreams. As the visionary founder of Expeditions.tv, Jerry invites others into realms of sacred knowledge and unexplored wonders, reminding us all that reality holds far more than meets the eye. Jerry, it is a true honor, and I believe the stars have truly aligned to bring you here. Welcome to the Galactic Family.
Well, thank you. I really feel it's a privilege to be invited on your program. It's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir. Well, let's just start from the beginning. What first awakened you to the subtle energies that were weaving through life? What awakened you?
Well, it's a rather confounding story. My entire life, I've been sensitive to a lot of things. As a child, I didn't know anything different than just what I was experiencing. And it was later that I discovered, much later in life, that these things I was experiencing were profoundly psychic. Seeing dead people, touching things and knowing the story, seeing like a movie in my mind play out about um, the thing that I had touched. Um, and, I started out working with animals, put my hand on an animal and seeing inside of it. I remember, living on a farm back in the hills of Kentucky. I remember going through, it was dusk, and I was chopping the weeds out from between some of the vegetables that we had planted. And I remember so clearly seeing little wisps of light coming up off of the ground, where I just severed the plant with a hoe, severed the plant from its roots. Just knowing things, and I just thought that's how it was. I thought that's how everybody was. I had no idea that it was something unique and special to me until, later. And I'd talk to my parents about it, well, my mother, and, she didn't like it at all. Didn't want me to talk about it, didn't want any part of it, really. And that was pretty much the theme throughout my life, for the next few decades, from being a child to being a young adult. And because of the chastisement, I decided, I would just put it all away. Well, concurrent to these things happening during my early years, there was a time, I was about 12 and a half, that I had an experience that was pretty interesting. I met up with a fellow in the woods, and before very much time had passed, it was something that was very unique. I was talking to him with my mind. So I thought that was pretty cool. He told me he was from another world out there among the stars. As time went on, it'd been about another 6, 7 months, and I started visiting with him, predominantly him. And then there were other occasions where it wasn't just him. There were a few others, 2 or 3, not always 2 or 3, but once in a while there's maybe another person or maybe a couple more of his kind that would show up. And so I was having UFO experiences from an early age as well. And, well, by the time I was 18, nobody wanted to hear about this. Nobody was interested. They didn't think that it was the sort of thing that that you would talk about in public. Anyway, went through a few marriages because
I bet.
no understanding there, no acceptance. It was too weird. And I figured out, I guess early on, that it was probably better if I just stayed quiet about it. And I did. I stayed quiet about it for quite a while. It wasn't until, I don't know, my mid 30s, I was asked to speak at some gathering. It's called the Sciences Forum in Phoenix. It was hosted by a fellow named Dave Peck. Big room in a shopping mall, big meeting room. So I went, and my first time ever speaking. There were a few people there, a number of people really, probably well over 100. And as I was talking and just basically just relating my story, details about the contact. That's what they wanted to hear about, the details about me talking to these extraterrestrials. How did I know they were extraterrestrials? Well, if they land in a flying saucer and they come out and say they're from somewhere else, I mean, what the hell? I'm not going to argue with them.
Right.
And so, it finally got to a point where when one man stood up and he said, why should I believe you? Well, I'd never spoken in public before. I figured these people were here. It was safe to talk about. And I basically just said, something? I really don't care if you believe me or not. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I was invited here to tell you what I experienced.
Exactly.
And, believe me, don't believe me, I don't care one way or the other. It's not going to change my story, and it's not going to change my mind. This is what happened. And that set the tone, really, for all future lectures that I did.
So that was like the defining moment right there when you knew, like, I'm going to continue this and keep going.
Well, it was. And I had a few occasions past that point to have a speaking engagement. Nothing too serious. I mean, a lot of people out there seem to be making a living doing it. They're invited everywhere. And of course, they have books to sell and, things to promote. I didn't have a book to sell. I had nothing to promote. I figured if they want to know, then I'll be happy to tell them. And I made my way around the country, a few dozen speaking engagements over the next couple of years. And then a fellow named Virgil Armstrong, maybe some of the older folks in your audience will remember that name. Virgil was also a lecturer, and I don't remember what he talked about, but it was all, he was in the military, and so that was part of the story. Well, Virgil was invited to speak in Berlin, Germany.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, good for you, buddy. He says, would you like to be a speaker there as well?
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it is. I had a great time there. And of course, I said yes. And the next thing you know, I'm in Berlin. And what a trip. I mean, that's like going to another planet.
Wow. Yeah.
Everything is so different there. So I was in this crowd of, I honestly don't know. There's at least 1,000 people. It was such a huge crowd of people. And they had one speaker after another. So I was coming on right after Virgil. And wow, the folks in Germany are basically no bullshit. Just like that thing that happened to me, that very first time, one guy stood up and he says, I don't believe you. I don't think this is the truth. I don't think this is not correct. And, Virgil was stammering and kind of broke his cadence. And then he went on a little bit more. And then someone else stood up and said, this isn't true information. This is false. And, the place was like chatty, chatty. Everybody was chatty. And I was really surprised at the degree at which, they were like so casual and they thought they could just talk amongst themselves loudly. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
Your
Well,
first time speaking and everybody's saying this isn't true and standing up and you're like, oh boy, here we go.
well, that was Virgil that was happening to. I'm off, off to the side in the
Okay.
wings, so to speak, listening to this happen to Virgil. I'm thinking, oh hell, this is me next.
That's what, yeah.
So the next thing you know, Virgil finishes. It's kind of like golf claps,
Oh boy.
and he walks off stage. The fellow running the place, he comes on stage, and he announces, "I'm next." Well, and I'm just like, what's this
Yeah.
going to be like, man? And of course, I was younger, hair down to here, and kind of like everybody else in the audience, except the women, their hair was down to there. Anyhow, I walked up there, and I had thought, because I'm in Germany, it would really be great if I could address them in their own language.
Yes.
Well, there's no way in hell I'm going to learn German in 2 days. So all I could do was learn a short phrase in German. And in German, in case you folks don't know, you talk from the back of your throat. Where's my
Yes.
throat? There it is, back there. You don't talk like we're talking here in the front of your mouth. So it's like, like that. And I went up there, and there was a famous thing that John Kennedy said. He said, "Ich bin ein Berliner."
Mm-hmm.
Except at the time I could say it more correctly than I just did. And so I walked up there, and I looked at everybody. The place went from noisy to quiet. And I apologized that I wasn't able to address them in their native tongue. So the best I could do is this, and I said that. Well, it just exploded with applause and cheers. And then I took off and started talking. And I talked for the 90 minutes that was allocated. You could have heard a pin drop. And instead of people getting up and leaving, and no one really coming in, which was the case for Virgil, and they were pretty noisy about it when they got up and left. Pardon me, really loud. Well, not only did they just go absolutely quiet, but it filled up to beyond capacity. There were people standing everywhere, people sitting in the aisles, people standing in the aisles. It was just absolutely just and silent. When I finished, because the guy gave me the high sign, told me it's time. So when I finished, I thanked them all for coming, and that I hope to see them again sometime. Well, they all started shouting. They stood up. They rushed the stage. They have their hands out, touch me, touch me. And just is unbelievable. All these people. And so the guy who runs the place said, you have to be respectful to the next speaker, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I said, you guys, now calm down. You have to be respectful to the next person. They have an important message for you as well. I said, and for me, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go have a cigarette. Thank you for coming. I went out the side door, stage left.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't out there long enough to much more than just light my cigarette up. And I was surrounded by 1,000 people. They had all left. the auditorium. They were just gone. They came outside, and it's spitting rain. If you've ever been to Germany, sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
just cold, spitty. This is around Easter time, gray skies. So they had me stand up on. They had like these big, kind of it's risen off the ground. It's just a bunch of bricks, has
Mm-hmm.
dirt in it, and a tree sticks out. I guess it's a big planter for a tree.
Yeah.
So I stood up on that. People surrounded me with umbrellas. The rest of them stood there in the rain, and they huddled in as close as they could, and they were asking questions and just wanting to know more. That went
Wow.
on for about 20 minutes, and the guy that runs the place has the door open, and he's looking out there, and he's like, "What the hell's going on?" And I said, "You guys, I'm tired of talking. So you go back inside and pay attention to that next speaker because they're important too."
Yeah.
And so within a few minutes, they all went back towards the front, went back in, went to the auditorium, and that was the end of it. Um, and since that time, the places where I have spoken, especially in Europe, have been like that. When I spoke in Norway, I was only supposed to speak for 90 minutes. It ended up being 5 hours.
Oh,
And
wow.
the promoter asked me if I would do the next night, and I agreed to it. I figured another 90 minutes, ended up being 5 hours. And he says, "Would you consider doing the next night?" There were 3 nights. I said, "Sure, it sounds fine." And I went and did another 5.5 hours. Well, what was happening is that people, when I guess they were at this talk I was giving, and the next thing you know, they're calling people, and more people are showing up. That place held a terrific number of people. I couldn't begin to tell you. It was such a huge damn place. Um, in Bergen, Norway. And every night the crowds got bigger. And of course, at the end of the third night, I was kind of burnt out. Supposed to fly out, changed our tickets. We stayed there for another, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks. And one of the things that I talked about was, healing. And I worked on some people right there on stage. Um, Terrific results.
Wow.
And some people in the lobby, terrific results. Doctors couldn't help any of these people. And so here I was helping them. So the next 2 weeks, I was seeing really just over and over and over again people every day into the night. And finally, towards the end of that, Kathy and I flew to Sofia, in America, Sofia, but it's Sofia, Bulgaria, and did an interview with Professor Lachazar Filipov. When he broke a story about having been contacted by extraterrestrials, I was one of the first people internationally to talk to him. Professor Filipov, you can consider him the Carl Sagan of Bulgaria. He ran the Institute for Science there. They have another name for it, but it's basically Space and Sciences Institute. And
Okay.
he was the main guy. So for extraterrestrials to have met with him and say, "We have a message for the world we'd like you to deliver,"
Mm.
you know, it was quite a thing for him, and quite a thing for me to talk to him about this. Well, anyhow, um, while we were there in Bergen, Norway, we flew to Athens, Greece, uh, did a thing over there, decided at the last minute to put together. We have friends in Greece. I mean, if you figure all the people in Norway ended up being kind of like friends,
Yeah.
well, it was the same story in Norway. or I'm sorry, in Athens. So at the end of that, we flew up to see uh, Professor Lachazar Filipov and did an interview with him. But I mean, this is how it all came to pass. I mean, that's the speaking engagements for the healing. I kept this pretty close, under a hat for a very long time. And it was right after this experience of going over to Europe and speaking in Berlin, came back. Um, I had been conducting trips to South America. And these trips basically were, they were scheduled, made in a way so that it would follow the events of the Celestine prophecy. And it was pretty successful. So, I was doing that. During one trip, a series of extraordinary events happened. And as a result, I came back from the trip. I announced to my wife at the time, we're basically separating, going to get a divorce. Why on earth is this happening? Well, because I was visited. And told that it was time for me to choose what I was going to do. And up to this time, she didn't want to hear a damn thing about it. No interest at all. Didn't want to go on the trips to Peru because a bunch of woo-woos. And so basically I did a lot of these by myself. And now I'd had this woo-woo experience where I had this visitation and was told this. Now it's like, oh, hell, you must have parasites in your brain or something. So next thing you know, that is falling apart, that marriage. And I walked away from everything, really, except my electronics business. Well, while I was in Peru, I was told by a shaman, his name is Pedro. He was an Aymara. That means he's from the Lake Titicaca area.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know at the time, but he was a master shaman. He taught others to become shaman. Well, he wanted to read the coca leaves for me, and I had that done so many times. It's like, I don't need that. But he insisted, and finally I acquiesced. And the next thing you know, he's reading these coca leaves, and he's telling me that, in a few months Now, I had been home. This is prior to saying, getting a separation, divorce, and all that. He says, in 6 months, you'll be divorced, and in less than a year, you'll no longer be working with electronics, with electricity. So there's another path for you. Well, how did he know any of this stuff about me? He didn't. So the next thing you know, there's a lot more to the story. If anyone's interested, you want to know what the story is actually pretty interesting. You can go to jerrywillsshow.com. And it's in the $15 membership level. You'll find there's a ton of stuff in there, but you'll find an ebook called Fantastic Journeys, The Prophecy. And that ebook will tell you the whole unbelievable Twilight Zone episode that happened in Peru. I'm leaving a hell of a lot out.
It was Twilight?
Yeah, it was like Twilight Zone.
Oh, boy.
So this shaman told me there was someone waiting for me now that I had made a decision on what I was going to do, that I was going to meet her. And she has hair like gold. Excuse me. And she lives in the heart. And it's like, what the hell does that mean? She lives in the heart. We went to a map with a stick, and he tapped around on it after throwing the coca leaves. And he says, this is where you'll meet her. It was Kansas City.
Hmm.
I said, "Oh, is that where she lives?" And he said, "No. Those more coca leaves." He taps around. She lives in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Hmm.
So, well, there's no way that I'm going to Kansas City. I can think of any reason why I would go there. And as far as Lincoln, Nebraska, why hell no? Why would I ever go to Lincoln, Nebraska?
Yeah.
He says, I don't know. It's what the coca leaves say. I'm paraphrasing because he didn't speak any English.
Yeah.
I got the information through an interpreter. So I got home, announced that there's going to be a separation. Mail got thrown at me. One letter landed inside my shirt, really like right there, stuck to me. I was in Phoenix. I was a little sweaty.
Yeah.
And I looked at that one first. It was everything that I needed to get from Phoenix to Kansas City to be a speaker, including money.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, I'm in the throes of all this shit going on with saying there's going to be a separation. And so I go to Kansas City, and long story short, this gal walks up to me with this hair that looks like gold, says, "Hi, my name's Kathy," reaches out her hand. We shake hands. Something really amazing happened when that occurred. And as it turns out, around 6 months, I was divorced. Before a year was out, I was out of the electronics business.
Hmm.
It was about a year. Kathy and I developed a friendship by phone. Oh, and she lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
And as you can probably tell, we ended up getting married. And
Yes.
it was because of Kathy. She thought that this healing thing that I do was extraordinary, and that instead of using my knowledge and my abilities in electronics, it was a lot smarter and probably within the realm of what I'm supposed to be doing, to be using my abilities and knowledge to help people. I didn't really feel good about it because my entire life I'd just been, made fun of, chastised and such. But she said that she would stand right by me. She would help, take my hand, not to be afraid, just do it. And I did. Now here it is, 27 years later. I have traveled the world with her. I've worked on tens of thousands of people. I've spoken in numerous countries. Hell, the guy that was the news director for Fox TV, he wrote a book about me because he finally figured out there's something to this.
I think everybody's starting to figure that out nowadays.
Yeah, the name of the book is Healer, the Jerry Wills story, and that's on Amazon. I didn't write it, he did. So, it takes us right up to this present day in time. There have been so many things that happened. It's as though once I met Kathy, that everything clicked into place, and my life took, well, hers did too. It's not like hers didn't take a dramatic shift, but just me talking about myself, my life took an incredible turn, and it has been one adventure after the other. Maybe not every day, but very frequently. It's been like that for 27 years.
That's
It's just
wonderful.
been incredible.
Wonderful.
And I still get people from all over the world calling, wanting me to do something, to help them. They're kind of at a point where they're ill. When someone has tried everything they know to try and it isn't working, and they're afraid. That's usually when they look me up. I'm hoping that that will change.
Well, how would you describe the mechanics though behind energy healing?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I like that one. Here's a way of maybe using metaphors to explain it.
Okay.
You've probably heard of people that can take a spoon and just do their thing, and damn spoon just bends over, right? Just, which is really quite extraordinary when you see it firsthand. It's even more extraordinary when you do it yourself. Um, that is energy, and that energy runs through you. And the spoon bends because you are applying that energy in a direction that is directed by intention. Your intention is for the damn spoon to bend. So
Okay.
when you get good at it, it's nothing to do. It's just you can take a crowbar. I've seen a person take a crowbar and do the same thing. I mean, we're talking a solid steel crowbar and just go like that. No
Wow.
effort, nothing. So when um, when you take that as an example, couple that with that weird thing that I was born with, I suppose, to be able to look inside of another person and see things pretty clearly. It's like looking in a fish tank most of the time. I don't always see things like that because it's too distracting, but that's the degree that I could look. So you take that and you say, okay, I see that there's a problem in this person's shoulder. And then you take that same energy that you're going to bend a spoon with and you just focus it on that. Well,
Okay.
how do you know what to do? Well, you just look at the other damn shoulder, the one that's good. And if both of them are bad, look at your own shoulder. I mean, my shoulders are fine.
Okay.
So you kind of have an idea, a template. And so you take that and you go, oh, I see what's wrong here. It's got a tear, a rotator cuff tear, or whatever. And you go, okay, wasn't supposed to look like that. So let me just, instead of bending a spoon, I just gather material from the body and just push it in place and bring it back. And then
Huh.
when I get done, I just tell them, okay, move your shoulder. Well, that's where the challenge is. Because, see, they already know. They are so convinced they can't move that damn shoulder. It's going to hurt. And they don't want to do something that's going to hurt themselves. So you kind of guide them, say, go ahead. If it hurts, it hurts.
Hmm.
But you're never going to know unless you try it. And so they'll be real ginger at first, and they'll move their shoulder, and the next thing you know, a little bit more. Then after a while, just arm up in the air.
Huh.
How does that feel? Well, there's no pain. It feels just great.
Oh, wow.
Now that's fine for a shoulder. Um, and I've done this for people with all kinds of things wrong. Just, I mean, figure out a question about what could go wrong. And I probably worked on someone with that. It's very rare I run into something that's just a real surprise to me, although it does happen from time to time. The thing is, there are two different aspects to healing. Uh, I guess I don't know if you call them aspects, but there are two different circumstances for sure.
Is that like the intention, thought, belief, influence that healing becomes,
Well, it's not belief, it's knowing.
or knowing? I'm sorry, wrong
Yeah,
word.
no, that's fine. A lot of people use that interchangeably.
Yeah.
But to believe something is much different than to know something.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think so. I've worked on people that didn't believe it at all. Their wife pressured them into doing it. They thought it was a bunch of bullshit, and they just like, yeah, go ahead. This one fellow from the Bay Area. God, I'll never forget this. He worked at a dealership in the mechanics area. Not sure what he did, but he's on his feet all day long, going back and forth here and there, you know, in the automotive repair part of this dealership. As a result, he had bone spurs on the bottoms of his feet. And because of that, he wore these pillows on his feet so he could just walk around. It hurt so bad. Because he had been diagnosed with this, and it's a tragic thing for him, he was going to get full disability. He'd retire early, full disability. Well, that was good. He was happy about that until I came along. You see, his wife pressured him into having me work on his feet. And he was not very pleasant. Wasn't a believer at all.
Okay.
He thought the whole thing was a bunch of hooey. But go ahead, my wife wants you to do it, so just get it the hell over with.
Huh.
So I did. It took me 20 minutes, I think. 10 minutes per foot. I just dissolved all the bone spurs. I mean, why the hell not? That's supposed to be there, right?
Wow.
So next thing you know, I said, okay, well, stand up. Let's see how it feels. He says, I know how it's going to feel. It's going to feel damn painful.
Yeah.
I said, well, maybe so, but show me. So he stood up, the pillow things on his feet. He's like, yeah, just what I thought. I said, take those pillow things off and stand on the floor, on the carpet. His wife convinced him he did. And she's there the whole time. And he's walking around and he goes, that doesn't hurt. I said, well, why don't you go over there on that tile floor and stomp your feet a few times? You got to be kidding me. I said, no, try it. So he went over.
No way.
He's stomping his feet over and over and over, one foot then the other. And he goes, what the hell have you done to me?
No.
I said, well, I just fixed the problem so you wouldn't be hurting. And that's when he told me about, disability and all this, and all that.
Oh, wow.
And he said, do you understand? And he's telling me about it. He says, put it back the way it was.
What?
And I said, I can't do that.
I don't think that's how it works.
I said, a healer does no harm.
Exactly.
I can't make it the way it was. This is God's will. Yeah, it's not God's will. And he was so pissed off. His wife pulled me aside, and this guy is in there just grumbling and pissed off to the max. Took me into, out of the living room, past the kitchen to the foyer. She handed me $350. That's what I charge.
Oh.
And thanked me. And I said, he's not very happy. And she said, he's not happy right now, but I think he will be later.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite a thing.
That is an incredible experience. But like, if you do healing, is there like certain spots, like natural power or enhancing healing spots around that have energy, different energies that you can tap into to perform better healing practices?
I've been all over the world.
Okay.
I've been to places that are supposed to be quite profound, and some of them actually are quite profound. for the energy, like the Temple of the Moon. It's a place above Cusco, Peru. Machu Picchu, of course. Um, Over in the ruins around Athens. I've been a lot of places. Sedona. You know, the answer to your question is it doesn't matter. I mean, some of these places are truly unique, and they do truly have some characteristic that's enhancing. But what I've discovered for myself, and this is just for me, is if you don't create your own energy spot, you only become, you know, let's say dependent upon finding the right energy spot, then you're never really going to evolve to the degree you could. Now, maybe going to these spots helps you to evolve, but it's a tool. It's not um, the end answer that you're looking for,
Okay.
because ultimately, it's got to come from in here. It's got to come from you. And if it doesn't, if you're depending on it coming from somewhere else, some location, for example, I'm really powerful when I'm at Machu Picchu, or I'm standing in a vortex in Sedona. Oh, I can feel the energy, and that's where I can do my best work. I've got to move to Sedona. Well,
Okay.
you're basically no different than any other junkie, because now you're an energy junkie, and that's the only way you're ever going to be feeling as though you're capable. You've got to get beyond that. You have to be capable wherever you are.
Okay. All right. Now let's talk ethics real quick.
Sure.
How do you navigate like a healing responsibility with ethics? Like anyone that comes up to you that pays, the 350 to see you can, tell them they could say their problem and you can try to heal them. Is that what happens? Like, or do you have an ethical, like moral, I'm not going to help somebody who robbed a bank down the road or whatever, it's, I don't know. Like it's a line, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
get your point. I understand.
Uh,
Um, that's a tough one. I think where my cutoff is if someone is cruel in
okay.
front of me, in front of me, or it's something I'm keenly aware of.
Or
If
sensing
they
from them.
Yeah, if they're just a cruel asshole, you know, I should still try to help them, but I have trouble doing that. If they piss me off, then you know I have no incentive to help someone who's not nice.
Closed-minded like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've had people that they I don't know what was wrong with them. Maybe they were a Democrat,
Yeah.
but they showed up with this chip on their shoulder. They were just pissy to begin with, and basically just complaining and giving me crap. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't you get the hell out of here? I can't help somebody that I don't like. I give back their money and say, get tell it. Well, I'm going to tell all my friends. I said, you know what? That's a good idea, because if your friends are like you, I don't want to see them either.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nope. Nope. I got you on that one. Okay. No, that sounds exactly what I would do. Like it's pretty much like intuition, what you feel from the person. Like,
Right.
is this person gonna be a good person, or is this person, whatever they're doing is not something that aligns with you? But what advice would you give someone who feels they're being called like you to heal others?
Well, there's a few things that are really important. And I'll just go over them real quick. Number one, when you work on someone and it worked because God was present. It worked because it was God's will. Whatever you think God is, I don't care if you're a Buddhist or Presbyterian or Catholic or whatever the hell you are. It doesn't
Higher
matter.
being.
Yeah, it's God. Whatever your word for God is, that's where it all came from. That's number one. If it works, that's the reason why. Number two, if it didn't work, that's the reason why also.
Okay.
If it's not within God's will, it's not going to happen. And you can't push it. And if you try to push it, it'll just continue to fail and you'll just be going deeper and deeper into a void.
Okay.
I've tried. I know what that feels like. Because see, you don't know what the plan is for this person's life. And you don't have any authority or right to change that.
Okay. I understand. Like they're destined to live to this age and, pass away crossing a street, and you miraculously are on the same street, heal them, they're now up and at them, but they were never supposed to be there in the first place. So now what happens?
It wasn't supposed to happen. I mean, it's like walking across your carpet,
Okay.
or if you have a tile floor, you're walking across, all of a sudden, what the hell? And you look down at your foot, a little bitty rock this big is stuck in the bottom of your foot, and you're thinking to yourself, damn, well, that's not your life purpose. That's just a thing that happened.
Okay.
And the people that I can help, that's what their situation is.
Okay.
Whether it's cancer or broken bones or brain tumors or blind or whatever the hell. I worked on all of those, and about 80% of the time, something incredible happens, but 20% of the time, it doesn't.
Okay. Well, that's still a pretty good damn number. I mean, 80-20, that's still.
Well, here's the deal, really. I mean, I might have, let's say, just as an example, a conversational example.
Okay.
I can work on 10 people with the same problem, and every one of them has something amazing that happens. They're healed.
Okay.
The very next person I work on, nothing happens. And it's nothing that I did wrong. I did everything that I do.
It happens.
Why?
It happens.
Why didn't it work? Well, because it wasn't meant to.
Okay.
And that's a tough one for folks, who have something desperately wrong and it doesn't work. It's like, this is God's will. Well, not necessarily God's will.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because we all have a path back to the Creator. We've all chosen how we're going to get from one point to another, and that end result being closer to the divine.
Okay.
And don't know what that path is going to entail. What's going to happen along the way. And sure, yeah, broke my leg. Oh my gosh. I come along, I fix it. Okay, go on down, 10 years later, oh my gosh, I've got this wrong. They come back, I fix it, they go along their way. Another 5 or 6 years goes along. This is, oh my God, this happened. I try to fix it, nothing happened. And this is a life-threatening issue for them. Well, that's a big pill to swallow. And it's really difficult for me as well, because I never know who I can help.
Okay.
When a person pays me, they're paying me for my time. They're not paying me for a healing.
Okay. No, I understand. So you say though that you're guided by intuition and not, a dogma or, against everything else. How do you differentiate between the two in your daily life? Like what you're following?
That's another good question. That's really, I don't know. I basically just feel, I think like most people do. A lot of people are making decisions intellectually, and maybe a lot more people are doing it that way. But over the course of all this time, I base it somewhat intellectual, which would be dogma, really what you've learned, what you know, and so
Yeah.
forth. But a lot of what my move from one move to the next move, whatever I'm doing, um, I might intellectually think, damn, that's a great idea, go that way, but I'll just feel it's like, that's not a good thing at all. And sometimes I've disregarded that. And of course, it wasn't a good thing at all.
I've
And
had
that's,
some of those things happen to me too. And it's like I'll give you a quick example. Driving down the highway, I've got my seatbelt on. My wife does it next to me. We're driving down the highway. It's the middle of the night. And I get this there's something in front of us. We're about to hit it in like a minute or two. And I looked over and I seen she didn't have her seatbelt on. And I said, put your seatbelt on. The second she puts it on, this deer runs out in front of us and I barely missed
oh,
it.
holy smokes. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing, you pay attention to your intuition.
Okay.
The thing that I don't think folks understand is that, and this is another thing about being a healer. You asked me that question, and there were a couple of other points there. One thing about being a human, just being alive, is God lives here first before anywhere else. That's where God lives, is right here inside of you. And if you go looking to find where you end and God begins, you're not going to find it, because it's just like homogenized. It's like having chocolate milk and trying to find the white milk in there. You're just not going to do it. So that essence of the creator is a big part of who you are, of what animates you and has you alive. And if you listen to that voice, there is at least equal measures, and I'd say probably more than equal measures, of that voice present if you're just willing to listen and follow what your intuition is telling you.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't, and a lot of people get in trouble as a result of it. The other thing too, with that in mind, that God lives here.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are trying to do work on other people. I just talked to a gal about this earlier today. How do I protect myself? If I want to work on someone that's got some, I don't know, whatever wrong, how do I protect myself? And I said, what are you protecting yourself from? Well, spiritual cooties. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get what they got. Huh. Okay. Well, I said, how about this? Everything. What do you think of this statement? Everything is of God. And she said, yeah, I agree with that. Everything is of God. I said, even Satan and demons and all that other stuff and ghosts and whatever, all of that is, you follow it back to the tippy top of the pyramid, point of origin, it's all God. All comes from God. Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, so God lives here. She'd accepted, yeah, I can see why that'd be the case, she said. God lives here. So if there's something naughty with whatever this person has that, might be a little scary. I remember the first time I worked on a guy with AIDS. It was a little A little intimidating at first. And then I remembered, well, whatever. It's in God's hands. I don't care. Well, I said, whatever it is that's wrong with them, being a healer means that you need to connect with them and not have fear. How on earth can you be effective if you're operating from a point of fear before you ever start?
That's true. That's very
And
true.
how
Well, go ahead.
and this person who has something wrong, they're afraid. And how much faith do you think they're going to have in you if you feel like you need to protect yourself from them first so that you're okay no matter what? So that doesn't seem reasonable to me.
I
She says,
understand.
and she did too. I said, so what you do is whatever's going on with them, and there's a technique that I teach. It's really simple. It's breathing is all it is. So put your hands on them if you can. Let them know they're not alone. The first order of business for any healer, the very first thing you should do is to bring peace. Everything
Okay.
follows. So comfort them. Look and see what's wrong and bring it into yourself. Don't be afraid you're going to catch it. Hell, bring it in. Just breathe it
Okay.
in. Experience it with them. One of the cool things about being a healer, and the tens of thousands of people I've worked with, I've gotten to experience their pain, their illness, the drugs they were on at times, pain drugs and whatever.
How is that? Huh.
It's very disorienting,
Wow.
but you got to pull it out of them.
Hmm.
You just bring it in. Well, everything's of God, and God, in my experience, you can offer God a dead flea. Here's a squished flea, God. What do you think of that? And God's like, wow, thank you very much. That's really groovy. I appreciate that. Any gift you give God is appreciated. God didn't have that kind of judgment to
Okay.
think it's not worthy. So you've got it here. And then you just have an arrangement with God. You just go, okay, I've experienced tens of thousands of people and their illnesses. As a soul, I don't have to experience any of that.
Hmm.
And by the way, I just pulled this in. I'm going to give it to you as a gift. And God's like, wow, thanks a lot. That's really great. Sure, I'll take that.
Huh.
And within moments, it's just gone.
Oh, wow.
So God has touched that person's life with healing. I've taken it from that person and internalized it so I could experience it. It benefits me. The healing benefits them. And what I've taken, I give back to God, and it benefits God. God's happy about it. It's the Trinity. And it's something that has worked over and over and over again for decades for me.
Okay. Well, what about, okay. Let's change topics now. Let's talk about
Good.
hidden energies of the earth and ancient, civilizations here for a second. Um, do ley lines, earth chakras, or power vortexes, do they play a role in the ancient architecture that you've seen or in consciousness? Like does it show that on and depict it of what you've seen in these ancient structures,
Mm-hmm.
as far as that goes? And then I have actually a question from somebody in the audience about chakras as well after this.
Yeah, that's fine. And the answer is yes. There are some profound places around the world that ley lines converge. Some are more powerful than others. And there are some truly dynamic things that can occur at these places if you know how to manipulate that energy. That information, of course, is not well known or even, possibly not known at all. by those of our current era. But I think in the past, I know for sure in the past that it was something that was understood, and they did use these things, and it enabled them to do make extraordinary accomplishments. Um, for example, there's a place in Peru, the doorway of Aramuru.
Yes.
That is right at a convergence of several major ley lines in the southern hemisphere, and that place is spooky amazing. There's another place called Markawasi, and there are some extraordinary things that happen at Markawasi. And then here in southern Arizona, there's a place, we call it the Crystal Plateau. I don't know that it has a name really, except for what we called it. It's not on any map.
All right.
It's near a place called Arivaca in Arizona. It has unbelievable amounts of energy. Weird damn things happen there. And these are places that are all around the world. There are quite a number of them all around the country. A bit of a side note on this, just to give you an example. You're familiar with David Pilates and his missing 411 and that sort of thing. I've not spoken to David. I put the feelers out to have him on the show, but he's not come on. I don't know why. I'm not as big as Coast to Coast, I suppose.
Lord.
But the thing is this. If you were to take a map, which we've done.
Okay.
Kathy did it actually. She's a hell of a researcher, and she did an overlay map and put it on the United States. There's a pattern, and the other pattern that emerges is Bigfoot, and another one is UFOs, and they overlay. Now, why in these areas? So she did more research.
They're doorways.
In a manner of speaking.
Huh.
You see, there's something called the North American Craton. Craton.
Okay.
The North American Craton. It is a mass that goes, across, I would say, a great deal of the United States. If you look it up, you'll see. I mean, it's been identified. That's how we were able to find, the details on it. So it isn't like it's hard to find. What you've got here is the immovable object, in a manner of speaking. Now, all around the North American Craton, you have all the plates and all these things shifting and pushing up against it. They are the unstoppable force. When you introduce the unstoppable force to the immovable object, terrific levels of energy are released. And the release of these energies, there you go.
Found it.
Mm-hmm.
So these are different slates or different areas that have.
Well, this isn't exactly showing you the Craton as distinctively as the maps that Kathy found or I found. This is good, but it's not as descriptive, because it's basically on the map that we have. It shows a line that goes down north to south, then it comes down, it goes across east to west, and then another line going diagonally back up again.
Wait a minute, I found it. Yep, I just found it just now. Yeah, I know exactly what you're looking at now. All right,
Okay.
hold on. I'm about to pull that one up because I think I found Craton, but I think it's doing it in a different kind of scan here. This is the one you're talking about, right?
There you go. That's it.
Okay. All right, so what are we looking at here then?
Well, in the center, that is the immovable object.
The red,
and every no,
or
it
just this
within the
whole
black,
center? Oh,
that whole center.
oh, okay.
That's the immovable object. On the outside of it, this would be the unstoppable force.
Hmm.
And uh, rather peculiar thing here, looking at down here at the bottom where it kind of dips down into Texas.
Yeah.
Well, you got the Marfa lights happening there. You look for Marfa. If this is accurate, which it probably isn't that accurate, it's a pretty good rendition though. But you find the Marfa lights. You go back up. You go up here to the top of Arkansas, and then there's Missouri. Well, that's where the Joplin spook lights are. You
Huh.
go over here to the right through the Carolinas. You have Brown Mountain lights. And you take a look at where people have vanished. You're going to find a preponderance of them are going to be along the outside line, outside of this line that you're looking at right there, the
Does that
black
mean
line.
there's like some sort of energy disturbance zone like around this?
Sure. Well, consider it this way. You've got the piezoelectric effect is probably
Yes.
the most well known. You squeeze something hard enough, energy is given off.
Okay.
Well, the unstoppable force is squeezing up against the immovable object. So there's one resource for the energy. Then you have the ley lines. That's a second. And if you had a ley line overlay with this, then you could probably map that out a little bit too. And then the third, and it's always the one that's overlooked, is that this entire planet is subject to energy that is emitted from the sun. You have a big black sunspot come into a view of the Earth. Within a short time, you're going to see there's earthquakes. Well, those earthquakes are moving everything on the outside of that black line. And the energy coming from the sun is going to come in at the poles. It's going to go down into the Earth. It's going to come back up out of the Earth. And when you take a look at a weather map showing high and low pressure cells, the low pressure cells are where the energy is going back up into the sky, arcing over and going in somewhere else on the Earth. It's like big rainbows of sorts, but it's just energy. And where you have the high pressure zones, that's where the energy is coming down into the Earth from a corresponding end of one of those arches that I said is like a big rainbow. And these are not stationary, they move all the time, just like weather patterns move, just like high and low pressure centers move.
Something like this would be like energy.
Well, there's energy occurring along that dotted line, that dashed line. But this energy is either going into or out of the Earth. And the
Okay.
amount of energy coming in to the Earth, charging it up, is going to be influenced by something that's happening from the sun.
Yes, exactly. The
Sunspot.
magnetical and the solar radiation waves.
Yeah. Now, I expect there's going to be more missing people. There's going to be more dramatic storms. There's going to be a real interesting cascade of odd events because since the late 1800s, the Earth's magnetic field has been weakening. And this weakening field, as it gets weaker and weaker, we as a planet are losing protection against the effects of cosmic radiation and solar storms
Mm-hmm.
and other emissions from the sun. And because of that, you're going to see, I think, I'm just predicting,
Yeah.
there's going to be more and more very odd things happening along this dashed line. And we've already heard reports that it is, but I think it's going to get a bit more profound.
Yeah, that's a good question. So where do the missing people end up at? Is it a doorway, like a slip, like I was talking about? Like it's just a magnetic energy slip doorway that just opens, closes, you walk through it, closes or something?
Yeah, that's a good way of portraying it. I need to get a drink of water.
Oh no, yeah, go ahead.
It's only 9% humidity here in the Sonoran Desert. Kathy's getting it for me. Hold on
Oh,
just a second.
yep. Yeah, it's all really interesting stuff. Very interesting.
Yeah, I was starting to lose my hydration.
Oh no, you're fine. So so
Um,
So they where do they end up then? Is it just a slip? Like there's so much
yeah,
energy in that spot, it opens, closes, and it's done.
yeah, that's that's a good way of explaining it. There are various kinds of slips, and I think some of the slips go between parallel worlds, a parallel version of the
Mm.
Earth. I can tell you from my own experience how strange this is. I was I'm here in Arizona, in Phoenix. Um, and these experiences aren't specifically always going to be along that line for the North American craton. I
Yeah,
mean, it could
because
be
the magnetic they shift from time to time because the sun has a 10-year solar cycle, meaning that it goes bigger and smaller as it goes. So the cycle on the earth would change too with the spot it was in, right? Not
that's
drastically, but it would still shift a little.
well. Remember how I told you about those arcs, like a rainbow,
Yeah.
how they move around, high pressure, low pressure.
Yeah.
Well, there are greater and lesser versions of those, and they're traveling around all the time,
Mhm.
intersecting also with fault lines. Like in Arizona, it's full of a lot of fault lines there. Nevada, the same. Oregon, Washington, California, they all have severe fault lines. So these are all places where that sort of thing can occur. I was going over to buy cigarettes on the Indian reservation and went down the freeway, went all the way over there to the other side. It was quite a ways. Um, and got off the freeway and I'm driving down the road and I'm really close now to where I was going. I blinked. It's like, you just take a blink and open your eyes, just blink, blink. And the next thing you know, I'm on this gravel road, speeding along at 60 miles an hour. And I don't know what the hell's going on. I looked ahead. The road comes to a T, and right in front of me are a bunch of rocks and a fence post with old barbed wire on it. And
Huh.
I'm speeding along right towards this damn thing. So I hit the brakes and just skidded, to a stop. And I could not figure out what the hell had just happened. How could I mean, how did I get here? I mean, it was just like totally confusing.
Huh.
I was just driving on the road just a moment before, and suddenly this is happening. I don't even know where I'm at. There's nothing familiar. This is
Wow.
back with flip phones, so no GPS.
Lovely.
I, I called Kathy and I explained it to her, as weird as it was, but she's kind of used to weird stuff by now. And so she asked me to start looking for landmarks. So I'm out. I'm looking for landmarks. Well, there was this one particular mesa over on one side of the road, and some mountains down the way a piece, and another outcropping of almost like a mountain, but off to the left of the road I was on. I identified those. She got on Google Earth, and she's kind of figuring out where I'm at. And hell, I'm about, I don't know, 10 miles from where I was supposed to be.
Hmm.
So she told me to turn around, go back the way that I just come.
Yeah.
and she guided me back by phone. And finally, I got back to the main highway. And when I got back to the main highway, I was just a short distance away from where I got the cigarettes at. That was bizarre. Um, and
Wow.
I've never been able to explain that. It was just in an instant. There was no sound, no sensation, nothing. It just happened.
Well, it's like I remember there was a park ranger, missing 411, New York, I believe, was doing his rounds and then ended up in California. And he called his wife and he was like, I don't know where I'm at. Can you come and pick me up? And she goes, I just GPSed your phone and I'm not coming to California to come and get you. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not in California. And he looked around, he started calling people, and here he was in California. He went from New York to California and doesn't know how it happened.
Yeah, and he was still dressed in his ski gear too. And it was not cold where he ended up.
Exactly. And like one of the questions that before we continue on, I got to bring this up. Austin wanted to know about body chakras. Are they real? Are the body center powers in your body real? When the Maharajas and the Buddhas and all of them, they describe different areas of energy in your body, like 7 different chakras in your body.
Yeah, they are. They're real.
Okay.
They are. And this is a really interesting thing about everything from small to large, micro to macro. You have an energy grid across the earth. It has all of these crossing energy points.
Okay.
Spots that are rather powerful. Well, in space you have that as well, on a much larger scale, of course, where lines of energy cross. And where some of these lines of energy cross, this is where you see stars, because it crosses, fusion occurs and stars are born.
Okay.
In your body, you also have a network that from my hand, there's all kinds of energy spots on my hand or in my head or in my body, but there are major crossing points throughout the body. And that's what the chakras are.
Okay.
When people say, oh, your chakras aren't aligned, well, that's like, what the hell does that even mean? If I eat, a hamburger, the energy centers are going to shift to accommodate what my body needs. If I'm doing one thing, it's this way. If I do another thing, it's another way. So this alignment thing is like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. but when it comes to, absolute specific, it's always there. Yeah, there are those places where it's always there. But if this chakra is not powered up the same way as that chakra is, it doesn't mean anything. It's just, where am I at? What am I doing in that moment? Your body will alter and shift depending upon what the needs are in the moment. Okay. Just like anything else. If you get cold, your capillaries are going to close off. Your hands are going to feel cold.
True.
If you drink some alcohol and it's cold, then your hands are going to feel warm because it's a vasodilator. It causes your arteries, your capillaries rather, to open up. But your body's not protecting you. You're losing a hell of a lot of heat because you drink some alcohol. So, the chakra centers, yeah, they're very real. And to take it a step farther, the way your body works, it is going to be completely dependent upon how much electricity there is in your body. Everything in your body depends upon electricity. Cells, muscles, everything. If you don't have enough electricity, then, it doesn't work so well. So, and that might seem a little vague to some folks, but every cell in your body has let's call it an engine that takes compounds, brings them together, that creates electricity that goes into the cell, and that electricity supplies energy to the mitochondria and in other aspects of the cell, but most specifically to the mitochondria. Now, the different colors being represented, I'm not sure what that's all about.
Probably just somebody wants to make different colors to make them different sections, but that doesn't matter. It's more of like the words themselves, I guess, like the root and all of that.
Sure. Well, let's take the red one for a second.
Okay.
There is, or there was, I don't know if there still is, but there was at one time an ancient book that I came across that a scientist had really gone into. Is written in it was Egyptian, so whatever that language was of the pharaohs.
Mm-hmm.
They had a thing called the rods of Amun-Ra, and each rod was a very specific length, and no one really understood why, but it was.
Hmm.
And maybe they got this information from India, which I wouldn't find hard to believe. But you take the red rod of Amun-Ra. If you were to divide that down, it would give you the exact center of the wavelength of the color red. Not almost, but it'd be absolutely spot on. That is, what was it? 680, I think. I'm probably wrong about that. But let's say 680 nanometers. Well, you take and expand that out until you have something you can hold. That is the rod of Amun-Ra, the red rod. Each one of these colors represents, in Egyptian lore, one of the rods of Amun-Ra. Well, Amun-Ra was the sun god, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use a prism, you divide it up into these colors. It's really quite fascinating. And the one, they always attribute the red down to the groin, sex, root chakra, all that. But if you take red light, let's say you burned your hand, like right there.
Okay.
You burned your hand. It's like, damn, that hurts. That's a burn. If you were to take red light and just shine it on that burn, which sounds counterintuitive, but if you were to shine it on that burn, it would quit hurting. If you
Same
had
frequency.
Yes.
Ah.
And if you really want it to work well, you'll do it in the dark.
That's what it is.
And what's happening there is that the red light...
canceling it out.
Not exactly. No, what's happening is you've got blood running through here, right?
Okay.
What's in the blood? All kinds of stuff. One of those things is called nitric oxide.
Okay.
Or nitric oxide.
Yeah.
Rather. Nitric oxide, a blood gas. What do you suppose releases nitric oxide out of the blood? The red blood cells. It is the red light. Nitric oxide is the very first stage in pain reduction and healing anywhere in your body. The problem is some people are using fluoride toothpaste, or they're using an antiseptic mouthwash. That's really, really bad. And the reason is because you have a bacteria that lives on your tongue, and the food you eat has nitrates in it.
Okay.
And those nitrates, well, the bacteria absorb the nitrates and immediately convert it into nitric oxide. Okay. And that's infused in your palate into your bloodstream. Well, The older you get, the less of this you have. Anyway, red light is very powerful for healing. So what about after the fact you've already done this? You can use the green light. The green light soothes the tissue. If you can see the aura, what you would see after you heal it, use a green light to restore it.
Okay.
Those two colors predominantly are very powerful in healing.
And this has been used in scientific studies, though, has it not? Vibrational science for healing, sound vibration healing.
Well, sound vibration is a lower energy constant than light particles.
True. Or they are trying light healing for like people's like hair and stuff like that. You know?
And it works. I should do it.
It does. It does.
Yeah, it works.
Wow.
It's one of the most powerful things you've got. As a matter of fact, about 25 years ago, 26 years ago, using light in a healing modality had a higher classification for control than opium, for example, opiates. In other words, it was illegal to heal using light because it was a controlled substance.
Get out of here.
Yep. I know that well because I had to know these things because I was working as a healer.
That is absolutely ridiculous when you think about it.
Well, same thing with walnuts. Walnuts contain a lot of selenium, which is really good for you.
Yeah.
And there was a thing with the government about using walnuts as a controlled substance. People don't know about it, probably. If they did hear about it, they disregarded it.
Well, there's a lot of things the government has done too. Like they've done experiments on people without their notice. They've given people, viruses, and said, "Oh, here's the cure." It really wasn't. That was the placebo. You know what I mean? Like just to watch it run its course. They've done that. It's horrible these days what they've done. But as far as what's that?
They've been doing this for a very long time.
Oh yeah,
they gave the guys in Tuskegee, Mississippi,
and they like to suppress it too. Anything that comes out, they're coming out saying, "Nope, that's not scientifically possible. It's not proven." And all these scientists jump on you and say you're wrong, and then they're like, "But have you actually sat down and tried what I did?" No.
I don't trust the scientists who say something's wrong. You have to take a look at who's paying them. What exclusive little club do they belong to? And you find some free energy device. Who are you going to go up against? Because you've got free energy. And what about using ivermectin, for example, against cancer or COVID or any of these things? Oh no, you can't do that. It's horse dewormer. Such bullshit.
Well, have you tried it in trial phases to actually see if it worked? You don't have to do human. It's not like okay, we're out of the COVID phase. We had a vaccine, whatever, that might have worked, might not have worked, whatever. But now we're out of that. For what I understand, why not take the time now? Experiment, see what the hell works. It could be you could have a blood pressure medication that works on something for ADHD or bipolar or PTSD, but you don't know why it works unless you test it.
You know what happens when you are using fluoride or an antiseptic mouthwash? You kill off that bacteria. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
It'll be important in a moment.
I used to be given fluoride tablets when I was in kindergarten. They used to give it to us every morning. We went into class because, it's good for your teeth. You have to take these tablets in school in my kindergarten.
How many people do you suppose? Let's just pick a number, say 50 years and older have high blood pressure. A lot?
More than most. More than half.
All right. More than people younger than that, for sure.
Okay.
So now you've got these folks using fluoride or antiseptic mouthwash or both, and they're over 50. They have high blood pressure. What do you suppose happens if you were to reintroduce nitric oxide back into their body? Latest studies show, though it's not across the board, because there are other reasons for high blood pressure, of course, but quite a number don't need to be worried about blood pressure because the nitric oxide is bringing their blood pressure down.
You're reintroducing a natural remedy that's already supposed to be there in the first place, but the other
It's
stuff is
missing
like
because,
chipping it down.
well, fluoride kills that bacteria.
Oh, I didn't know it killed it.
Oh, it's just dead as shit. And so does the antiseptic mouthwash. You put them both together, and now what have you got? A nice clean mouth.
So how do you get it back then after you've already taken fluoride for like your whole kindergarten year?
Well, it'll come back naturally.
Oh, okay.
You stop using this stuff, it comes back. But as soon as you do use it again, it's dead. So if you're over 50, well, I would say at any age. I mean, if you're using fluoride, you have high blood pressure, all these criteria I just outlined, high blood pressure, it's something to be worried about. Well, stop using those things. But now, over 50, your body's ability to produce its own nitric oxide is diminished. It diminishes with age. From usually about late 30s, early 40s, it starts just going down and down and down and down.
Okay.
Until, my age, I'm 71. And by 71, there isn't enough. Well, nitric oxide is responsible for a great many things. There were actually 4, I think, maybe 5 Nobel Prizes given for the studies on nitric oxide, what it does in the body. Well, the thing is this. You reintroduce nitric oxide and things start to change. Well, what changes? You got more nitric oxide. Your healing is going to be faster. Your blood pressure is going to be better because nitric oxide protects the lining of the vascular system. And that moment of exchange where microcapillaries are exchanging oxygen into a cell and pulling away carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
The reason that happens, the only reason that happens, is because nitric oxide is present. What happens if it isn't that present? How healthy do you think one cell might be? And you have over 30 trillion cells in your body, you see.
If you don't have it in your body, it's going to be less productive. So I'm saying maybe you're going to work at like maybe 35, 40%.
More than that. You're basically degrading the efficacy of how the body functions. More than 30 or 40%.
Wow.
So what's the solution? It's real simple. Stop using that shit. Number 1, fluoride and antiseptic mouthwash.
I didn't know it killed it.
Oh, it killed it. It just absolutely is gone. So,
well, is there truth then to the same thing that everybody says? Fluoride and all these different chemicals, they coat your pineal gland in your head, which makes it so it's less effective in meditation.
If you are reducing the blood flow at the microcapillary level to your pineal and pituitary gland, how well do you suppose it's going to work?
And
Number 2,
you just suck it right back at me.
Number two, fluoride is a metal from the halogen group. So you have three different atoms in the halogen group. Fluoride is one of them. It's the smallest of them. Gets into the cracks and crevices. That's why they use it. They say, oh, it's great for teeth. Have you ever taken a fluoride crystal and done this with your fingernail on it? And it just carves a hole into it. But it doesn't just replace calcium in your teeth. It replaces calcium in your bones. And it goes into your brain. So I want to swing back to something in just a moment. But on this particular topic, in order to get the fluoride out of your body, first you have to know that selenium and fluoride are like magnetically attracted.
Okay.
So selenium will pull fluoride out of your body and take a leak and it's gone.
Is that those hydration, flush your body kind of things?
No, not at all. You don't want to do that.
Oh, okay.
The important point here, fluoride and selenium, they'll connect and it'll go out of your body. But how do you get it to disconnect from the bones and your pineal gland and pituitary? How do you get it to disconnect? You use iodine. 50 milligrams, unless you have a hyperactive thyroid, and if you do, you don't do this shit.
Okay.
But iodine is the largest atom of the halogen group.
Okay.
When it contacts fluoride, it dissolves it. When it dissolves it and you use selenium, it pulls it out of your body. It's not a fast process, but it's a sure process.
Okay. Wow.
Now back to the nitric oxide and the high blood pressure. We've already established what causes it. Here's what you can do to start fixing it. Real simple. You have to put in, once you've stopped using this stuff, you have to put in something that creates nitric oxide. There is a product. It's called N1O1.
Okay.
Just, number one, O, and another number one. If you go to the jerrywills.com website, you go to a page called Healers Health Tips. N101 is listed on that long list of supplements. There is a discount code there. And if you're serious about doing this, I think they have a special buy 3 bottles, get 1 free. Do that.
Okay.
And then you'll go to the site, you'll see where there's these lozenges that are there. They also have toothpaste now too, which is, I've not tried it, but I've heard it's quite good. But the lozenges are there. Get the lozenges, buy 3, get 1 free. Use 1 in the morning. Let it dissolve. Be a little bit of a tingliness. It's kind of a citrus flavor. Use 1 at night before you go to bed.
Yeah.
My blood pressure, I had never checked it, but I figured at 71 I should. My blood pressure was high enough to where if I'd gone to the hospital, they would have said, oh, you're going to need some blood pressure medicine. Because I have plenty of clients. I know what their blood pressures are, and I know what's happened to them. So I know it would happen to me too. But knowing what I know, I got the lozenges and started taking them. My blood pressure was back to normal in a week. It might have been sooner, but I just tested it, and then a week later I tested it again, and it was just perfectly normal. Exactly what is supposed to be. So now I use these lozenges, not every day, but I use them frequently enough. And my blood pressure remains at normal. So consequently, what might that do for someone who's listening, who's worried about either getting high blood pressure. What causes that? Nitric oxide, a lack of it. The older you get, the less of it you
Okay.
have. So just do this. See what happens. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. But you're not going to know unless you try it.
No, that's very true. That's very, very true. I'm actually looking right now at your website. I think it should be up now. If it's not, hopefully, maybe, no, yes. There we go.
That's it.
All right. Now, let me see what I was doing here. Looking down here.
Go down, you'll see exotic elements.
That's what I was looking at too. Exotic elements. Okay. When you're talking about an exotic element 4, are you is it something that you've perfected?
Um, I think the regiment that I'm on has
Okay.
been as perfect as I can get it. Exotic Elements 4 is a video,
Oh,
and
okay, okay.
there are 4 videos. These are in our members area, $15 membership, and that says right there, watch Exotic Elements 4. Well, that um, gives you specifically what Kathy and I are doing,
Okay.
and it's a lot of pills. And boy, that's a hot topic as far as what this shit does. Um, that interleukin 11 inhibitor stack right there, that
Yeah.
that's new science as well. IL-11 or interleukin 11. The older you get, the more of it shows up. So you have to do something to knock it back down. It's part of the reason why we age and why eventually we die. There's N101 right there.
Wow.
So bottom
Okay.
of the page,
Yeah.
and you'll see it says watch this video.
Yeah.
Watch that video. It'll blow your mind. Looks like a commercial.
Yeah, I hate commercials.
There it is. And that video will explain to you everything that I just said and a lot more. But you can see your production goes from 100% at 10 years old, and by the time you're 40, it's down to 50%. By the time you're my age, it's down to 15%, and that's where the real danger is.
Okay.
There's a lot to be said about nitric oxide. A man cannot achieve an erection if he doesn't have nitric oxide.
Yeah.
Uh, so it affects you sexually. People that use Viagra and Cialis, and it's like, well, it isn't really working well for me. Well, the reason is because you don't have enough nitric oxide. So, and you can see there vascular dementia, erectile dysfunction, diabetes, small vessel disease, arteriosclerosis, coagulation. I mean, all these things. This is a short list of the things that nitric oxide, a lack of it, will uh, cause you some problems with. Hypertension's top of the list.
Okay.
But yeah, if your viewers will watch that, they'll be quite educated on just one thing from the list of exotic elements. The exotic elements, basically what that's about. These are some very top shelf items, and these items, many of them have been for sale, but they're bastardized because the purity isn't there, um, and they're not 100% what they say they are. It's a lot of fillers.
Well, you have to
But
make
if
sure
you,
you're getting the right stuff.
yeah, and if you get the right stuff that's fresh, has the purity and so forth, right dosages, it is pretty amazing. Well, some of the things on that list weren't even available 4 years ago. They were only laboratory, exclusively for labs for research. Now they're in the public domain. And just briefly, what has been found out about using these things. And if you take a look at Exotic Elements 4, you'll see that Kathy and I are using, quite a number of these things. I mean, a lot, morning and night. What this will do for you uh, it will stop the aging process. And the longer you use it, the younger you will become very slowly. I didn't believe it. I thought, this is either real or it's not. And how would you know? So the only way you could find out is to do it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be on my second year. Um, as you can see, at 71, I'm, mentally intact. Everything is really good for me, very healthy. And the other thing is that one thing that was quite profound. Um, I wear glasses. These glasses, just computer work.
Reading.
But yeah, they're very weak.
That's what mine
Not,
are too.
but I was wearing stronger lenses for seeing in the distance. My distance vision was just crap.
Yeah.
Well, in the midst of like the within the first 9 months of starting this regimen, I had probably 6 months. I had gone ahead and got some glasses because I just really couldn't see in the distance very well. It was just real strain. Nothing was clear. Continued using these supplements. Went back to the eye doctor, the optometrist. Got the glasses in September. Found out how bad my eyes were. Went back to the optometrist first part of February the following year, which would be a year ago last February from where we are now. And had my eyes tested again because the glasses are just terrible, and I'm thinking my eyesight's getting worse. He tested my eyes a couple of times and scratched his head, and he says, I have no idea how to explain this, but your left eye is 20/10 and your right eye is 20/20. You have perfect vision.
What?
Yeah. I know, it's just hard to believe. It is for me too. So I attribute it to that. I mean, there's no other explanation. And I'm not the only one this has happened to. I've been in touch with a number of other people who have the same story to tell about that and numerous other things. Aches and pains gone, stiffness gone, their get up and go, had got up and went. Well, they're not there. They're out there exercising and looking better. It's remarkable what this stuff can do. And Exotic Elements number 2 explains this in detail so folks can get their mind around exactly what these supplements do. Because like I said, you got 30 trillion or more cells in your body. Every cell is dedicated with a specific genetic material that will determine what the job of that cell is.
Okay, yeah.
So you've got all these variations, broad spectrum of variations throughout the body, as you know. I mean, stuff that makes hair isn't the same stuff that makes a toe. So, these are all very specific and focused on what they're supposed to do. But in every one of these cells, there is, for lack of a better way of explaining it, there is an engine. And that engine takes different compounds, brings it together, and it creates electricity. And the electricity then feeds the cell, specifically the mitochondria, and makes the cell run at a much higher, more normal rate. When you turn 20 years old, in round numbers, around 20, between being born and 20 years old, the architecture of the cell is producing 100% of its capacity of creating electricity, because now your cells divide, you're growing, you're getting bigger, you're getting older.
So is that why when you're a child, you have more intuition and more connection with spiritual, because you don't have all these inside things that have been like building up in your system all these years?
Well, it's not so much building up. You haven't been indoctrinated. That's why you're more insightful when you're a child.
Okay. Well, yeah. It's like you have still the mysterious and
Yeah.
imagination.
Well, but more specifically to this point, your cells are bringing you into adulthood, and it
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
100% energy to do that. But as soon as you turn around 20 years old, the output from that engine drops 50%.
Oh, wow.
It goes to one half. You don't need to grow anymore. You're grown. And so now you can operate very effectively on 50% of what that energy output was.
So it's idle.
Yeah, it's just 50%. That's what you're running on at 20 years old. By the time you turn 40, you lose another 50%. So now you're 25% at 40 years old.
Oh, whoa.
So this is why when you're 20 years old, you have a lot more energy and a lot more going for you. But when you're 40 years old, you're running a little bit slower. By the time you're 60, this is in 20-year cycles. By the time you're 60, that 25% is now 12.5%, one half. And that's why when you're 60, you're not running like you were when you were 20. This kid's got all kinds of energy. Wish I had that energy again. Well,
Huh.
this is the reason why. By the time you're 80, you're running at 6.25%. Is,
Whoa.
is it any wonder that between 50 and 80, you decline rapidly?
Huh.
Because your cells can't reproduce. They can't do the job they're meant to do because that engine is not getting what it needed to run at least 50%. Hell, if you get it to 30%, that would be an
I can see
improvement
that. And with
from
all the
6 point.
microplastics and everything else that we ingest, inhale, whatever, it's clouding everything up.
So, 6.25%. By the time you're 100, it's 3.12%. That's why you don't make it to 100 typically. That's why
Wow.
people after 80, they don't go much longer than that either. You're running at 6.25% at 80. I mean, you're basically decimated. What these exotic elements do is they provide the compounds. There's a bunch of them to use, but they provide the compounds to feed that engine to increase the energy output. The cell is still quite capable of doing what it did when you were 20.
Okay.
It's just you don't have the compounds. You put those in. Well, next thing you know, you've stopped the aging process for sure. And now you're retarding the aging process. And there are ways of measuring this. It isn't just, guesswork. There are absolute accurate ways of measuring all of this.
Well,
And
let's.
this is the reason
Well,
why at my age I'm doing these things, but on 2 years, and I'm doing fantastic.
that's just wow. I'm just listening to all this. The numbers and everything are just. It blows my mind how it goes down so far so fast.
Well, but
Um.
that's aging. And you see,
Yeah.
people look at age as a relativistic way of expressing that a person is just getting older. Well, they're older. They need some help now. Mental decline, physical decline. It's not age, it's chemistry. You alter the chemistry, you then cause the body to start working the way it's supposed to. It's science. It's just easy enough to
Yeah.
understand. And if you watch Exotic Elements #2 in the members area, that's a $15 members area. You watch Exotic Elements #2, you'll understand. It'll be an aha moment for you. You'll get it. And
Well, I
then once
know
you've
our
got it,
sorry for interrupting you, sir. I know our audience is yelling at me right now. They want to talk about aliens. Just or UAP encounters with non-human intelligences.
Well,
Anything that you can tell us, like, have you had an encounter that was something that you believe was non-human intelligent or was outside of this plane of existence?
yeah, many times.
And can you describe any of them? Like what happened? What would, like, was it a feeling? Was it a, like, visual? You saw it or
Well, yeah, I had a sandwich with them.
what?
Uh, well, when I was growing up in the hills of Kentucky, from the ages of 13 until 18, it's about a 5 year period. I had occasions to sit and talk with them and be with them. Uh, well, one in particular, his name was Zoe, but Z-O.
Okay.
Best I know how to tell you. Anyway, many occasions, and I met others that he brought occasionally and talked with them as well. Didn't really talk like you and I are talking. Started out
Yeah.
like that, just briefly, but then it just went pure telepathic,
Oh,
which
wow.
is a much easier way of communicating. This linear language is slow.
I've been told that by non-speaking children that do their letters and everything with assisted behavioral science behind it. It's really breathtaking.
As far as ET encounters, yeah, that was one. Saw the ship, went inside the ship, sat outside, talked to them.
Wow.
Um, one time, just one time, I had a sandwich. It was kind of like a vegetarian sandwich. It had all stuff in there. I like meat, but this was really good. Actually, I could eat that every day and not get tired of it. Just delicious. The bread was kind of chewy.
So
Um,
they gave it to you, or you ordered from a restaurant?
no, there was no restaurant. It's back in the hills of Kentucky in the woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I told him I was hungry, and so he went,
Yeah.
Zoe went inside, came back out, gave me a sandwich.
Wow.
It was good. Aside from that, I've also had encounters with these creepy little guys that are like, I don't know, 3.5 foot tall, big heads, slender bodies, big eyes. They're certainly no friends of mine.
Huh.
I don't think they're friends of humanity either, from what I found out. But um, yeah, I've had a few encounters with them.
Wow.
Had another encounter with another species, I should say. It was about 5.5, 6 foot tall. They also had big heads, big eyes. They weren't gray though. They were kind of
A blue?
a bluish color. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, this bluish white. They didn't really make noise. They had 4 fingers. Little gray ones had 4 fingers as well. Um, they were nice. They were nice folks. I didn't spend much time with them at all. I was really sick, and so Zoe had them show up and help me because I was like, I don't know, 14 and
Oh,
just
wow.
sick as hell. I thought I was going to die.
So they healed you.
Yeah, they gave me a shot in each arm.
Oh, wow.
One of those air gun things. I'd never seen one
Yeah.
before. It was just like a tube, a silver tube. Just push it up against skin.
Yeah.
Went like that. Little presence of a sensation, but not much. Um, but that was just really, I think, the only time I ever saw those guys. Um, and
Wow.
then in Peru, I met up with a guy. Said his name was Rich, and he said he was a Pleiadian. And I'm like, sure
Yeah.
you are. Barbara Marciniak had just released her book, Bringers of the Dawn. And I don't know about where you are, but in Phoenix, everybody was either they're a Pleiadian or they're channeling a Pleiadian.
Okay.
That was the thing. Well, Rich tells me he's a Pleiadian. I'm like, sure you are.
Yeah.
He knew my name, but a lot of people in Peru know my name. So anyway, long story short, he proved to me that he was a Pleiadian in
Huh.
more ways than one. We became friends. He introduced me to the others like him who were also that's where they kind of based themselves out of.
Wow.
He was with a group that were sociologists, anthropologists, as he
They were studying.
yeah, and they mingled with groups I brought down there. Had conversations with people who never knew that they were talking to a Pleiadian.
Oh my God.
And
So
yeah,
are they
that went
all
on for
scientists though that you've met?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That is so cool.
Well, one guy, I don't know what he was. Kathy met him too. Tall
Oh,
black
she
man.
saw them too.
Well, it was this guy. Well, she saw Rich too. I forgot about that. She did see Rich once
Oh
as well.
wow.
So that the tall black guy, I don't know who he was, what his story was, nothing about him.
Okay.
But when they take 3 steps and just vanish, or they turn into a blue sphere and float off,
Whoa.
or get out of a UFO,
Well,
like
yeah, but
Rich
somebody's
did.
walking off and turns into an orb. I'm like, my jaw would hit the ground and I'd probably fall. Ugh,
It was real surprising.
ugh.
It was very surprising. But
Wow.
he was a nice guy. He had a unique sense of humor. Um, not like anyone I'd ever met before. The others, they showed up at a place called a Cuckoo's. This glass right here is from a Cuckoo's.
Okay.
It was a gift from a friend of mine. His name is Art. The Cuckoo's is a nightclub, and I'd made friends with a band there. Really, they had great music. I mean, they could have been big if they just had a chance.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm a musician. And I had a lot of equipment sitting around at home. So when I went back down to Peru, I took a crate full of equipment for them. And they got, I gave it to them. And they were going to be performing at a Cuckoo's. And we were on our way as a group going to Machu Picchu in the Sacred Valley.
Okay.
And we were going to be coming back to Cusco. And so this group, these guys, they said, would you like to join us, play some music? Before I left for Machu Picchu, I said,
Yeah.
oh, hell yeah, that'd be terrific. I'd love it because I love the music. So I met up with Rich and I said, hey, I'm going to be doing this thing. It's going to be fun. It's going to be at Cuckoo's. You know where that's at? Oh, yeah. He understood Cuckoo's quite well. He knew about it. So, well, it's going to be whatever night it was. And I'm going to be playing music there. So, if you'd like to come and listen, you're invited. He says, can I bring friends? And I said, sure. So I showed up and they were already there. They occupied one table in the very center of this nightclub,
Okay.
in proximity to the stage towards the front. And came time, I played a couple songs to these guys. I got finished and went over and said hello to the folks at the table. And I said, well, we've got to leave. We have to get back. So, I walked them out and then I had to go back inside because my bass guitar was in there and my group was in there.
Hmm.
So didn't see him again for another few months. Then I met up with him again later. Um, it was a pretty good relationship. He's a really neat guy. I liked him.
See, that is awesome. Like just the experience alone would be enough for me. I don't have to. I wouldn't have to go out there, photograph, videotape, and all this. If I go out there alone and I see it myself, that's proof for me. That's what I
Yeah,
want.
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's I could have taken pictures. He didn't want me to, but I could probably have snuck around a little bit. But that would just be dishonest.
Yeah,
And he was a good friend. It'd be like your friend says, "Hey, please don't take a picture of me." You're
it's
going to respect that.
treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah, exactly. So no problem. I didn't. I
Yeah,
abided by his request and always did.
I would too.
We got along famously. It would be several years later. Kathy and I were in Lima, in Miraflores. Miraflores is a district of Lima, and there's a place there. It's like an alley. You'd have to see it to really understand it, but on a Saturday night, Miraflores is just full of people, Peruvians, and some travelers as well. Not as many as there are Peruvians.
Okay.
We were there with a friend, and it's a place called Pizza Street. And on either side of this long alley, every kind of place that they all serve pizza. Well, we're sitting at the far end of Pizza Street, looking over the pavilion and just hordes of people. I'm sitting there talking to my friend Peter, and we're having a good old time. I'm sipping a beer, and Kathy says, "Jer, uh, that guy over there just keeps staring this direction. I think he's looking at you. Do you know him?" I looked around, and I'll be go to hell. There was Rich, just standing there, head and shoulders above these short Peruvians. And as soon as our eyes locked, he smiled real big, waved. I waved back,
Okay.
and I said, "Kat, that's Rich." And so she waved, he smiled, and he just turned, walked into the crowd, and was gone from sight. I haven't seen him since. But a really neat guy. I'd love to see him again. I really enjoyed his company.
It sounds like a meaningful relationship, like a friendship between you two was great. I mean,
It
and who
was.
knows? Who knows later on down the line? You respected his decision, didn't record, didn't do anything. Who knows later on down the line? Maybe you're gonna pass away, and he's like, "I'll allow you this time. Take a picture." You never know. I mean,
You never know.
yeah. I mean, I would ask, and if he would say no, I'd put it down. You asked.
He said he liked being in the Andes
Oh,
because it reminded him so much of home.
aw.
And we talked about his home a little bit, and
Does he
it sounded like
does he go back and forth then, or is it like,
yeah.
oh wow,
He's here for a while. He says, I'll be here for, like 6 months, 8 months. Then I'll go
okay,
home and I'll be there, for an extended period of time because I've got family there. And then it's time to come back. So I'll come back. So how long does it take you? He says, it doesn't take very long. I mean, it's just basically like riding an elevator, going from the third floor to the first floor.
huh?
And we're there. He says, it's pretty quick. I said, well,
Wow.
Pleiades is a long way away, though, isn't it? And he said, well, I guess everything's relative. I mean, if you can get there quickly, it's not really a long way away, is it?
That's very true. That's very true. So,
Yeah.
what do they want from us though, or for us? Like, is it more of a scientific exploration, make sure you don't blow up your own planet kind of thing, or
No.
or like, Austin had a question. Did the aliens, look alien, or are they like cloaked, or are they someone else, or they look human?
Well, to answer that question, uh, I'll get back to what they want from us, or
Yes.
why they're here, really, not what they want from us.
Yeah. Why?
Uh,
Why
the,
are they here?
well, let me answer this one from Austin first. Austin, the deal is that the Greys, little short guys, they are very powerful telepathically. Their mental abilities are unsurpassed. I've never read anything that can do that. They can cause you to see whatever it is that they want you to see. They've done that to me a couple of times,
Okay.
but it doesn't last very long for me because Zoe apparently did something that allowed me to break free of their mental control, so they couldn't. It's not that they're cloaked; it's that they just get in your head and make you see something that is not threatening.
They can change your visual cortex, and then you see whatever it is. I
Yeah,
get it.
exactly. As far as why they're here because there's a number of reasons why they're here. Um, I think the most important reason is because people on this world have forgotten where they come from,
Okay.
and they're here because they and us, the ones that look like humans anyway, we all come from the same point of origin. You know, there's a very long story about all of this, but essentially, the people who are here were brought here a long time ago,
Okay.
and there have been off and on through different epochs. We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps, but they have been back and forth to here, and it's not an unusual thing. But they're here because you know we are, of course, unique on this planet as we have developed here. They are unique as they are because of where they grew up. It's kind of like meeting someone from Europe, or someone
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Ireland. Um, they might eat goat's eyeballs or sheep eyeballs over in Ireland. I forgot what it's called, but they do. And someone in Polynesia, they have their own dietary things that they're doing, and we have our own. Give me a hamburger and fries, please. Well, you know, all these people in all these different corners of the world have evolved respective to where they are, but when it comes right down to it, they're human, we're human, and that's how it is with the people I met, like Zoe, in my early formative years. He was from I don't know, the star system, and then you have Rich from the Pleiades, apparently.
Hmm.
Um, Still human, but just different in respect to where they come from.
So do they
And for
communicate like visually though, with symbols, or with like straight words saying, here?
well, Rich and I always communicated just with words. He didn't do the telepathy thing at all.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
no symbols. I mean, it was just like, hi, how you doing?
Nice.
Um, Zoe, on the other hand, a little bit different, but from a different culture. They evolved a little bit differently,
Okay.
and they preferred to use telepathy. Um,
Okay.
so, I mean, you just have these peculiarities based upon where they're from. But the bottom line is they're human, we're human, Rich is human, on and on and
Wow.
on. The people I met with Rich, there was this guy that looked like he was Asian. There was then there was a tall black guy we met.
Huh.
Uh, there were some women there. They didn't look like you know the classic. You see people making pictures, and it looks busty women, slender waists, and like sexual, dreadnoughts. They just looked like women. They were just people,
Okay.
and different as people are. You know, Rich was different, and the people he was with, each individuals, and each looked different than the other. And then there was Zoe, and Zoe looked different than the other people he brought. Some were shorter, some were the same size, some had different color hair, different physical manifestations in their body. About some were a little bulkier, some were a little heavy. Well, they really weren't ever heavier. I never saw any of them heavier, but they were just some taller, some shorter. Just different
Okay.
as people are. So I mean, it was just one of those things that where you go out there in the universe, and there are people. We all have a common origin, a common ancestor, let's say,
Okay.
and that common ancestor, whoever it is, and wherever they might have been from, somehow eventually populated the worlds in the Pleiades, populated worlds around Tau Ceti, um, and populated this world, and God only knows how many others. But they're all
Yeah.
just people. It's just like Columbus came over here. Well, the Vikings were here first. Look at scrawny ass Columbus compared to a Viking, compared to the Native Americans. I mean, compared to the Mayan civilization. You know, you can just go on and on and on. You compare the Vikings to someone from China. I mean, it's just one world, and you have such great diversity. You have that same diversity out there among the stars.
That is incredible. And that's pretty much exactly what I would think, because you're on a different world. You got different cultures, different religions, different aspects that are fortified around things. Maybe one species does something with nature and the other species leaves the planet and finds another planet.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe their planet's doomed.
Well, and there's some worlds out there that aren't as evolved as we are here on Earth. And there are others that are more evolved.
Well, do
I mean,
you believe like some people have off-world like origin, like, well, we just said that off-world origins, but like soul agreements like with star families?
I don't know, probably. I know
Okay.
on in my experience here on this world that people tend to migrate together, maybe not within the same dynamic of the relationships that they have now,
Okay.
but they tend to migrate. Familiarity is one of those things. However, that said, evolution requires that occasionally a wild card is thrown in, and the soul is always trying to achieve some form of evolution.
Okay.
So, it just becomes, it becomes something that's really difficult to talk about, because who has any practical knowledge of that?
And that, yeah, that brings us into the holographic, the layered, or the fluid universe. Like, and
Yeah,
I'm believing holographic because literally it actually is, because your brain is a CPU, your senses are the items connected to the computer, but it still takes the electrical signals time to go from one end to the other, and they only are limited. Their extreme senses are extremely limited by what we can sense. So it's like
right.
our brain is like, you put a supercomputer out there, and your senses are like this Atari game system going into it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good analogy.
Okay. That's what I'm believing though. What do you believe? Like holographic, layered, or fluid?
Well, I don't know. I think holographic probably is where I would lean towards.
Okay.
But I'm a strong proponent of the multi-universe aspect.
I am too. I'm skeptical on everything. I always research everything I try to talk about, and everything is a theory based off of a theory based off of a theory, unless we have something backing it, And, I can't disbelieve you. You can't disbelieve me. And we can't disbelieve the next person down the street. But if we're there to listen to you, I'm going to listen to you. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like, you don't throw, wood on the fire, making it worse. You try to help. And that's,
Yeah.
that's why I brought you on here too, because it's skeptical to talk about different things and different natures and different timelines, different aspects of mental intuition that we have. And you just bring the profound knowledge to the table. The one thing that I wanted to ask, like, what is your theory? Do we tune into other timelines during deep meditation, or do we tune into past actions that we've done before, or even future? It's a fluid universe.
Well, in the realm that you're tapping into during meditation,
Okay.
what's happening first is your mind begins to propagate gamma waves.
Okay.
It's a measured thing. It's a known thing. So at that point, your awareness becomes more expanded, and the ability to focus in any particular direction, in other words, direction of intention, becomes more capable. It is then when you enter into a realm of awareness that you enter a realm where there isn't any time or distance. There isn't future or past or now. It's all in a singularity. You get good at that, and you get to a point where you can just direct whether you want to go to the past or go to the future. I do that all the time when I'm working on people, because I like to see what's happening inside them and then find out what went wrong.
Okay.
And when I'm working on someone, I can usually project to the future too, but I don't do that very often. And so, yeah, I mean, you start entering into this realm of the infinite, and it's there that you find there's absolute silence until you break the silence. And when the silence gets broken, that is the process of manifestation.
Okay.
Makes
sense.
just like with words. If you said a sentence, just strung it all together, it'd probably make no sense at all. The greatest depth of knowledge that you can achieve is by listening to the silence, because the next thing that's uttered or realized carries the deepest amount of meaning for the mind that is aware and asking.
That is very true and profound too.
Silence is very important. That's why meditation, quieting the mind. But you're going to enter into a place, some call it kundalini. There's a lot of words for it. But when you enter into that place where your gamma waves are now being amplified, and not everybody can make the same, let's call it volume, like turn the volume up. Some people can only get up to maybe a 1 or 1.5 or 2. Other people can get up maybe 4 or 5. Other people might get to 10. Not many ever do. Very few ever do to that level. But the point is that when you propagate the gamma waves, you're opening yourself up to the infinite. And in the infinite, that's where there's the absolute silence, because it's in the infinite where the absolute silence exists, as I was saying.
Okay.
That manifestation occurs with a word. And a word is a metaphor for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's an intention, receiving information. It's whatever you're doing to disturb the silence in that moment. And you go back silence again, and you listen, and you receive, and the silence is broken again because there was something you received.
Huh.
But all this exists outside of time and distance. Space, that's just kind of a catchphrase, but it all exists outside of time and distance. And you can come back into time and distance again. Here we are sitting talking,
Yeah.
and we're going through time. We've eliminated some quotient of the distance by using the electronics, and so you know we're back in this realm. But if we went to a different realm, then we could not only exist as we are now, maybe in an energetic form, not sure, but I suspect that's the case, but we would be basically energy that is flowing but is not resonating, not giving off. It's just silence. It's just flowing in silence. Your consciousness pings, disturbing that silence, and is carried through the entire universe. And somewhere, someone, something listening hears that question, and just a very casual yes comes back, and it resonates through the entire universe. And with practice,
How do you know though that it's coming from someone else and not your own thoughts though?
well, you don't
It's
until
just
you get in.
intuition. Like, is that
Well, you basically have to get to a point where you know what you're doing.
okay? Okay. What is your personal mission now? And are there places that you still feel compelled you have to go explore?
I don't feel compelled to go explore anything, but I would like to.
Okay.
I don't have any compulsion to do it.
Okay.
And as far as what was the question? What do I feel my mission is?
Yeah, what's your personal mission now in life? Like, what I know you have the X what is it? X what am I looking at here? Can't find it on my screen. Expeditions.tv.
No, it's jerrywillsshow.com.
Oh, okay.
The expeditions.tv, that site isn't running right now.
Oh, okay.
I
So everybody can go to
combined
that to
all that.
find you on then your website.
Yeah, jerrywillsshow.com. The expeditions.tv was predominantly dedicated to a lot of the documentaries we made
Okay.
while in Peru and in other places. And when we put jerrywillsshow.com online, we discontinued expeditions.tv. We still own the name, but we discontinued it and put that information in the $15 level at the member site.
Gotcha. I got you.
As far as my mission, what I feel, well, I think it's twofold. One is working as a healer, helping people best I can. I'm quite good at it, and it does make a difference in the world. And number two, just imparting, the knowledge that I have that I've acquired over all this time. And most people say, well, it looks, looking over a lifetime, all the things you've done and what you know. It's not just a lifetime, it's several lifetimes. Like I told you at the beginning of this conversation, I was profoundly psychic as a child.
Yeah.
And I've remained quite psychic ever since. And I remember past lifetimes. I remember a lot of things. And as a result, there are some things that I view as being a universal way of understanding the dynamics of life itself, in a philosophical way.
Okay.
I know, some of the biochemical aspects as we were talking about earlier as well. Um, so anyway, I carry a lot of stuff with me from past lifetimes, and we're entering into an age now where there are going to be some serious things taking place. And I'm not talking political. I'm talking serious things taking place to this planet. There are things ahead. These things don't have to happen, but they happen with great frequency because of all the discord on this world. Like I was saying earlier about bending a spoon.
Yeah.
What if you got together 1,000 people who could bend spoons, and these 1,000 people were in that space that I was talking about, getting the gamma waves going and getting into a point where they reached the silence and they could ping the silence.
Yeah.
And what if they were to get together and go, we no longer need this or that or that? Those things would cease to exist. If one person can bend a spoon, what could 1,000 people do if they agreed on one thing and entered into that space? There is a need for that, but I don't think the need's going to be met in time.
Okay.
Because there are things that are coming for this world that are going to occur that are quite unpleasant.
But we
And the
have
only
to probably
way,
go through them to grow.
oh, believe me,
Huh.
gone through it so many times, and the same mistakes are always made
I'm
over and
guessing
over.
I'm just theorizing in my own head. World reset, like flooding, like it seems like it's a cycle.
It's a 12,000-year cycle.
Okay. And also the polar shifting and the polar, what is it? The North Pole is now shifting or something.
It's heading
Where
towards the Indian Ocean, and so is the South Pole. It's heading towards the Indian Ocean as well.
now is that going to mess up as far as when the magnetic poles switch? Does that also mess up the magnetic waves that come in from the sun?
Significantly, because it's
So we
doing
could have
this.
that like,
As it's doing this, the Earth's magnetic field continues to become weaker and weaker. As this becomes weaker and weaker, it's letting in greater and greater levels of gamma radiation, cosmic radiation.
and this is the
And,
peak of the sun's activity right now, too.
well, a lot of this radiation is coming from the center of the galaxy. But, long before it becomes a grand issue, um, the poles moving as they are and things getting weaker and weaker, what's going to happen next is that there's going to be no protection from the energy that's emitted from the sun during an
Yes.
outburst. When that occurs, everything that we rely upon in life that works on electricity will cease to
Fried.
exist. And we will be cast back into a very primitive point.
Stone Age.
And yeah. And you know how many people are going to survive without the things they're used to having right now?
Well, I can tell you there's going to be a lot less tech people in the world if they can't do anything with their tech because it's now a paperweight.
Well, not only that, but you also have people who are on defibrillators, people who are
True.
depending upon uh, getting
Artificial
their.
intelligence, brain stuff to make their limbs move.
Well, that's one thing, but the ability to go and get a gallon of gas or go to the store and get food
True.
that's worth eating. The water won't be pumping. The air conditioning won't be running. The heat won't occur. Sewage won't be treated.
Ah.
Think about all the things that rely upon this world having an electrical system that's functional. Take that away, all these things fail. When
Okay,
all these things fail, there's disaster.
okay, but even if everything fails on the planet, say a big EMP wipes out everything on the planet, couldn't you still take the raw materials, make the machines necessary, and build it back up again? It would take time, but couldn't you?
You could, but then what's going to happen next becomes an even more devastating situation.
Oh, great.
I mean, it's not just one thing. There are
Okay.
three. There are three things,
Okay.
and when these three things happen, there will be maybe 5% of the population left alive, living in Stone Age conditions, and the only thing that will survive, as far as buildings and knowledge, are those things written on stone. And this is the reason why you find these ancient places that still stand after all this time that are made of stone. And the only knowledge that remains was either buried deep inside of stone or it was etched upon the stone, away
Yeah.
from the weathering. Take a look at Tiwanaku in Bolivia. The last time this happened, the earth moved in such a way that the water from the Pacific Ocean was so powerful and so high as the earth tilted over on its side that it went over the Andes.
What?
Tiwanaku, yeah. Take a
Oh,
look at the coastal line of South America, all the way down from Ecuador, all the way down. That's a crescent shape, and all the way down, it is a desert.
how high of a
You,
wave are we talking?
I don't know.
100 feet, too? Like, if it tilts on its axis, that's got to be huge.
It's not feet, it's miles.
Or miles. Miles.
Well, find the
Ooh.
highest. Look, on the side of the mountain in
Yeah.
Chile, in the Andes, there are the remains of giant whales and dolphins and other marine life at 16,000 feet.
Well, we knew about the Great Flood also because of the fact of the water weathering around the Sphinx too. And
That was a 6,000. That was a 6,000 year cycle,
okay,
not the 12,000.
so it's a different cycle for the Earth than it is certain sections.
No, it's all the same all over the Earth, but there are different cycles. There's
Okay.
12,000, 6,000, 3,000. Where we are right now on the Earth, we're at the end of a 12,000 year cycle,
And then it resets.
and the Earth goes over on its side. So Peru will be South America.
Shoo.
When this happened last time, the water came from the west and went east. This time, when it happens, the water is going to go from the east and go west. So the tallest peak in the Appalachian Mountains, along that whole line of mountains, north to south,
Wow.
the tallest peak will be about a foot above water.
Wow. I'm just
At least
thinking
in
of
the
that.
approaches.
That's incredible.
And this isn't just me speculating. This is scientific fact.
And there's proof of it anyway, because we have it in all the ancient structures, the weathering,
Sure.
you could see it. Wow.
The last time it happened, Peru was like South America. People wonder, why is it that these things that are so remarkably old are still intact? Because they were underneath of ice and snow until the earth tilted again. It all melted away. The only thing left were glaciers up in the Andes, which we've been to.
Okay.
But that's not all. I mean, it's not like the earth as a planet tilts over. What happens is the
It's the
energy off the sun.
gravitational.
No, it's the energy from the sun heats up the magma. The skin of the earth slips.
Oh. Like an egg.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense.
There is
So,
one man who has devoted a considerable amount of years to this research and reporting on the research.
okay.
You can go on YouTube, look for suspicious observers on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
There is a disaster playlist, and I encourage everyone to dig into it and watch everything that's there. These things he's talking about, I didn't know the intrinsic details of all the physics, and I knew, from my own historical perspective from past lifetimes. But he puts the details together in such a way that it's unmistakable, and it isn't conjecture. It's worth taking
That,
a look at.
yeah, I'm definitely going to take a look at it after we're done speaking here. So two more questions for you to end the night. So it's getting kind of long here for you.
All right.
Um, what message do you feel humanity most needs to hear right now?
The thing most important for everyone to hear, I think, and to within themselves realize is that since you were a child, you were given a set of rules and a criteria to live by. Many of these are quite worthwhile and they're universal truths. The problem is that people, by and large, have forgotten who they really are. Instead, what they've come to realize about themselves is that they are a father, a mother, a husband, um, a wife, a child, or an employee or a boss. All of these require that you wear the mask that allows others around you to be comfortable so that they're comfortable around you, and you adapt yourself so that you're fitting into this dynamic so that they are seeing what they've always seen and that they're comfortable. But what happens is that you lose yourself in that process. So what you want to try and do is to discover who you really are. And I can't tell you who you really are. You have to find out who you are. It isn't how you look, it isn't what you do, it isn't who you are to someone else. And like I said, there are some universal truths involved in our relationships, both with friends and with family. But if you're not being you, then who are you being? And who are you being this for? That was one of those lessons that Rich taught me. He says, if you're not being you, then who are you being? And who are you being this for? If you can't answer that question, you need to start looking for answers, because this is the only way you're going to really wake up to your own existence and become aware of who you are yourself. And you're not going to find it unless you, well, for me anyway, I wouldn't say you're never going to find it, but I would say it's going to be difficult. The way that I found it was I got away from everyone who knows me. They didn't have any expectations of me. And I, of course, played out the role of who I thought that I was.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I got to a point where I was just being me. And I discovered who I was. And this was that catalyst moment. It was very catalytic when I was in Peru and I had these experiences. And I had to, when Rich said this to me, I had to stop and take a long look.
Okay.
Who am I? And, you know, take off the mask, basically, and rediscover yourself. It's a little scary, and it can be disruptive to relationships. But if you're going to be you, truly who you are, if they don't like who you truly are, then you've been living a lie.
Okay. Okay. And how can listeners begin to start to tune into the energies that you work with? Is there like simple practices that they could start?
There are.
Okay.
Um, that's a, takes a bit of explanation, I suppose, but the energy already exists within you.
Okay.
So this first thing the thing I just talked about discovering who you are,
Yes.
it's going to be very difficult for you to access those energies comprehensively if you don't know who you are.
So find out who you are first.
Yeah, I think that's a prerequisite. And then, if you're comfortable with who you are and you think, oh yeah, I'm groovy, everything's fine, then my best suggestion is you want to develop your innate abilities. Well, I used to teach this and was very successful in doing so. I created 4 classes. Now, these 4 classes are, you know, basically all the material that you need to discover your own human potential, your own spiritual potential, and human potential.
Okay.
Those classes are at jerrywillsshow.com. They're in the $25 level. And before anyone gasps, oh my God, $25. Those classes I have been selling for $30 and $35 per class. At the $25 level, you can get all 4 of the classes for $25. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm
You
looking
know,
at them right now too, and that's what I would do.
I didn't create the classes like other people do, where it's kind of like you have to imagine this, imagine that,
Yeah.
do this, do that. I think that's basically a flawed attempt at trying to help others. Instead, I created these 4 classes really, so that they are a valid experience you can repeat over and over and over again.
Okay.
And it isn't that you're imagining anything. You have to challenge this with empirical evidence. It has to be something that if you do it, then you know you've done it. And if you know you've done it, you can show someone else and they can do it too. A good example of that is Class 2. Class 2 teaches you how to see energy. Well, you can do that. It's not a question of being special or having some gifts. You already have it as a gift. It's within you. You can do this. And I show you how you do it. Class 2 does that. But I suggest before you jump to Class 2, go to Class 1, because that is the inception point. Get good at Class 1. If you feel you've, like, okay, I've got this, then go to Class 2. And you will see energy. I think there's only been 2 or 3 people who never did. No idea why. But by and large, 2 or 3 people out of thousands and thousands of people, yeah, they have all seen energy. It's easy. It's scientific. It is a law of physics. And I show you how to do this. It's a simple thing. And when you get good at it, you can see energy at will anytime you want to. Just look around. What do I want to see energy around? And you see it. Class 3, now that you can see energy, and of course in Class 2, there's 2 parts of it as well.
Okay.
The second part of Class 2 is directing it. So you can see it. So let's make it do something. So you do something and you can control what it's doing. It takes a little practice, but I mean, if you can see it, all you have to do is just work out, how to make it move in ways that you can see to get that feedback. So it's a piece of cake.
Well, I can
really.
tell you, I've actually had a personal experience like that. I've done metaphysical work like you for about 25 years. So I see energy, I can feel it. I've done the same things that you've done. I could attest right now that I've seen it. I've done it. I've felt it. And the one day, this is what my wife said the one time to me. She goes, and this is my ex-wife, obviously. She said to me, "I don't believe you. I don't believe that you can control energy at all." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to prove it to you." I said, "Please sit down on the couch." She sits on the couch. We have an air conditioner in the house, right? I had the air conditioner on. Okay. I had it at a normal level. It's 75 degrees in the house. I went through the whole house and I said, "Look, it is 75 degrees throughout the entire house. Am I right?" She says, "Yes." I said, "Okay, sit on the couch." She sits on the couch. I sit there in the chair in the middle of the room. I have my hands out like this, and I'm focusing my energy. I made the room heat rise by 10 degrees, and she had sweat coming down her nose. She had a drop. I got done with what I was doing, come up out of it, and I look at her and I said, "She's red." I said, "Do you believe me now?" She said, "I just have nothing to say to you." And she walked away from me. Like she couldn't
Scary.
prove me wrong, so she had to walk away.
Well, class 3 takes your ability to see and manipulate the flow of
Yes,
energy. Class 3 takes you to where now you can use that energy to move objects.
I haven't done that. The only thing I've done is just the heat, the heating up the energy in the room.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. But you can use that energy to move objects. And so I show you how to build little test devices so you can start moving objects with just sending energy to it. And then we get to class 4, which is not exactly experiential um, unless you get a group of people together who are doing what you're doing. Because in class 4, this teaches you how to combine the energy of everyone involved and direct it. But
Okay.
anyway, those 4 classes are in the $25 area of jerrywillshow.com. Individually, it costs probably $130, but instead,
Right there is the website, everyone, that you can look at.
yeah. You might show them also jerrywillsshow.com.
jerrywillshow.com. All right. I will
Yeah,
put that up.
yeah, just SHOW.
Yep.
And there we go. And that's it.
Okay.
So if you click over there on the sign up, and this is the Lost City package, $25. That's where
Okay.
the classes are. And if you do that, well, you basically get everything there is in the site. Everything. And there's hundreds of videos. There's so much stuff there. I couldn't even begin to tell you. You know, over 10 years of material there, lots of interviews.
I'm going to have to dig into this when we get done.
But yeah, if they want to learn how to do this, how to develop their innate abilities, that's how you do it.
Okay.
It's all right there. It works.
All right.
It's not hard. It's simple. It's supposed to be fun, and you're supposed to laugh and have a good time, not be deadly serious and roll your eyes in the back of your head and start chanting ohms. That's all nonsense when it comes to learning how to manipulate energy.
I've never had to do that. I've never had to chant and yell and scream and do all that. So that does nothing. That doesn't do anything. All it is for imitation. It's for someone else's benefit. Looking at you like, oh, this guy must really know what he's doing. No, he really doesn't. Yeah, exactly.
And this isn't specifically teaching you about being a healer or being anything. I mean, it's whatever you're interested. You want to be a medium?
Yeah.
You can do this to be a medium. Psychometry,
Okay.
whatever it is you're wanting to do. being a healer, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But it takes you from 0 to 100. And if you put in the time and the effort and you work with that, then well, you'll get there. Others have. I don't know why anyone else wouldn't.
Awesome. Well, sir, I guess I will, we'll cut this off because we could probably talk for another 3 hours on ancient civilizations, but we're gonna have to do this again, and I'll have to have you back on. It's just there's so much we could have covered.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. There's all sorts of stuff to talk about. I want to thank your audience for tuning in, spending some time. It is a real privilege to have spent some time with you folks. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on. It was very kind of you. It's a privilege to be here. And I'll be happy to come on again sometime.
Yeah,
So,
anytime at all, sir. We're actually going to be transitioning in a little bit. We're going to be doing some live investigations in the field, doing some field work. You know how Jake Barber and all them, they sit there and they pre-record their videos, right? And they cut out parts and all this, and they could be out there for 4 months and get like 2 minutes worth of video and then splice it together and say that happened in one night. No. I want to go out there live with this audience and show them I am going under doing CE5. You see me doing it. You see me doing the hemisync audio tape to synchronize my brain. You see me putting my intention out there. Here's what the machines are picking up. And then we're going to have someone actually scanning the sky and looking to see what's happening at live. If I don't get anything,
right.
I don't get anything.
At least it's truth.
It's live. It's out there.
Well, I think that's the best way to do it.
Thank you.
It's an experience at that point. It's not just a show.
Exactly. And that's what I want. It's not a show. Exactly. It's the experience itself. If it happens, it'll be the biggest experience of people's lives because it's live.
Yeah.
It's not pre-cut or anything.
Love it. Sounds like a great plan.
Thank you. Let
me know. Let me know details of what you got coming up in that respect. And I'll make sure that when I do our broadcasts, that I'll let folks know about what you're doing. All right.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And vice versa. Anything you have going on, you let me know and I'll put it out the next day.
All right. That sounds fair. If you happen to go into the members area, we do send out a newsletter.
Okay.
And the newsletter is either about, new interviews that I've done, or it's about some things going on that others might be interested in. One of the perks for the folks that become members is, let's say we were going to go someplace, I don't know, say Joplin Spook Lights. Let's say we're going to go to see Joplin. So we put it out there. We're going to be there on a specific date over like a long weekend or something. And we tell our members, this is what the plan is. Well, our members, they're always invited to join us. It doesn't cost anything except for whatever it takes to get you there and a place to stay and, that stuff that would be normal if you went on a road trip anyway. But it doesn't cost you anything to join us and to be there and experience this with us. It's just a perk with the membership.
Okay.
So anyway, we can we can send you information, that way as well.
Definitely. All right. Well, I mean, I'll let you go, sir, and then we will keep in contact. Definitely, and I'll let you know what we got going on, and we'll advertise what you got going on, sir.
I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, and you have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, sir. That was Jerry Wills, everyone. And let me tell you, I'm just excited. I'm happy. I'm excited he was on. So happy to have someone with so much experience in healing. Not something we normally talk about on this podcast. It's normally UFOs, UAPs, aliens. Healing is an art, I believe. It's an art form. It's it is an energetic art form, and you're putting the pieces back where they belong. Okay, you're making the flow again like a river instead of it being backed up. And it's so cool to have somebody like him on. Now, what we're doing in the next couple weeks, we do have our next guest that's coming up, which will be on. Let me see here. It'll be on May 7th at 8 p.m. We have Rob Goutreau. He is bridging the realms of science, spirit, and the unseen and the seen. Exploring the mysterious that shape our multi-dimensional reality. He's a scientist, author, and spirit communicator. So, with a mind, he brings a rational mind to the realm often dismissed by science with communication with the dead. So, it should be pretty cool to have him on after that. Now, after the 7th, or I'm sorry, after that date, the 7th, we're going to transition on the 14th. We're going to be doing live in the field. All right. Live in the field investigation. We're going to employ everything that we have as far as Project Contact goes. And that I'm actually going to get with Jerry afterwards, let him know about this. Not the 14th, excuse me, the 17th, which will be a Saturday. We'll be going to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. I have a spot picked out there. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be employing all the equipment that we have in the field with Project Contact, and we're going to try our hardest to make meaningful contact with another extraterrestrial intelligence. And I want you guys there with me, and you will be there with me. This will be a live on the site, no cut BS. Everybody's welcome. I'm not cutting it. I'm not BSing it. I'm not doing any of that. If I don't get anything, guys, I don't get anything. But you know what? If I do get something, you all will be there to witness it live in person with no filters. Galactic Family Podcast. As always, what is it? We humans are all one species, born of Earth, to spread peace, love, and understanding throughout the galaxy. And I want to thank everyone in this community for helping, for sharing, for putting the word out there. It has been enormous with the amount of emails, the amount of information that's come in. I get emotional. I get real emotional and tear up with this because we have almost reached 100 people. It might not seem like a lot to you, but it is to me. That is 100 people that we have touched, that we have helped along the way. No matter if they stay subscribers or find another channel that works the same way as what they're feeling. I am emotionally connected to everyone here. Everyone here is my family. Galactic Family Podcast. Have a great night. Love you all.